Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to take you with me to the Museum of Fine Arts of Orléans. As many of you might already know, I have moved from Paris to a city in central France which is called Orléans, and is incidentally also, the city that has famously given us Joan of Arc. And I wanted to grab the opportunity to show you what the Museum of Fine Arts has to offer. To be completely transparent with you guys, I have already been here because there was an event organized for the new locals, or people who recently have moved to Orléans. And I've been there. We have all been received by the mayor of the city, who is very kind, and I already had an opportunity to talk to him about the different opportunities that the city would have to offer in terms of exhibitions, salons and things like that. So this event took place here in the Museum of Fine Arts, which is actually a great idea to not do it in a more common place, maybe like the City Hall, right? So I've already had a glimpse of the collections, but I did not in any way see everything. So parts of what I will show you today will be new to me as well, and parts I've already seen, so I will be in a better place to talk you through the details. And now, please come with me and let's discover the Museum of Fine Arts of Orléans. And here we have Joan of Arc, obviously already very well shown from the entrance. So apparently what I didn't know was that the Museum of Fine Arts of Orléans is one of the museums in France that is the most well known for its 17th and 18th century paintings. Actually, it is about that time that Orléans was very important in French history, that they were very close to the King of France, and therefore there were a lot of patrons of the art. There was a lot of money, obviously, to fund painters, artists of all sorts, and this is where the bulk of the collection actually comes from. Now, apparently, one of the most important patrons of the art, Velazquez, was himself very interested in the Flemish masters in the 16th century, but a lot of this collection, as well as the Southern European paintings, were lost in the 1940s due to the bombardments of Orléans during the Second World War. So this whole bit is unfortunately either destroyed or has been looted. So there's a lot that we do not have now, but apparently has been part of the collection. So now we have mostly 17th and 18th century paintings and just a bit of the 16th, the second half of the 16th century. Let's discover all of this together, shall we? And we have still another floor to walk because apparently it starts at the top and then you work your way through to the bottom, which incidentally also means that there's two floors that I have absolutely never seen before. And we're starting off with a very nice collection of ivory sculptures. So this will be 16th century ivory work, very typical of the period. Whatever one might think about religious art, I think it's difficult not to appreciate the very intricate work. Okay, we're starting off really with a banger, in my opinion. So this is one of the most ancient works of art that they still have in the possession of their collections. This is German, I believe, and we are in the beginning of the 16th century, and yes, it is German. So we are looking at St. George here, who is battling a dragon, which is funny because there is no dragon to be seen on this panel, but what people are thinking is that there is a second panel like this, which is actually missing, which would include the awe-inspiring dragon. Please appreciate this little detail here where we have a broken jawline of someone and a broken spear as well, which would be the remains of the less victorious knight who came along to battle the dragon before St. George. I personally am a big fan of the very medieval-inspired art of the Renaissance. I do love the contrast in colors and the contrast in color values. I can't explain why, but I do really appreciate how luminous the paintings of this particular period look like. Also, look how there are any details in the ground, so we don't see details of the earth or the herbs or something, but we do have one prominent plant here which stands out even more so because everything else is looking so barren and is deprived of any details. Lovely. Now this is another example of the earliest works that they do have in the collection. We are looking at a painting of the end of this 15th century, maybe the beginning of the 16th. A very nice example of these epochs work. Once again, I know I'm repeating myself here probably, but I do love those very rich colors that have been used in this particular time period, and the deep, rich shadows, the bright highlights, the resulting contrast. It looks so luminous. Love this very khaki, mossy green also that we tend to see a lot in the beginning of the Renaissance. Very nice. Also look at the level of detail on the mantle that the angel is wearing and the effect of a gold brocade that we have through a very masterful use of paints. Just incredible. I mean, the old masters certainly did not need any gold, silver or bronze colored paints, right? They just were perfectly able to create this effect in the clothing and the hair by themselves. I do appreciate this Flemish painting as well. Probably the mid-16th century that we have here, and apparently it is a master copy of Martin de Vos, who would have copied a well-known painting done by his father. So this one, apparently. Look at those rich colors and the slightly exaggerated highlights on the drapings. I'm a big sucker for that. I must say, mannerism is not what I love best in art, but I do appreciate the quality of, or rather the style of representing the beautiful clothes. This I'm really here for, and this and those beautiful jewels. Now we have another very nice example of the Flemish portraits. We have a very, very strict dark background, which I I'm not even sure whether it's brown or black. I would argue it is black. That helps to bring out the armory of the lady's family, right? And the color that brings light to her facial features. We also have a lot of embroidery or beaded work on her dress, on her gown, which catches this very low-key light, illuminating the scene. So dramatic. Love it. So that's the same principle here. We have another copy of Martin Devoe's original painting, once again done by his son, if I understand correctly. Very beautiful, rich colors. A lot of texture also in the details of the jewels. I don't know whether you can see it on the camera, I'm not sure. Maybe this will show more here. Look. There's quite a lot of texture and relief to the paint applied and the highlights. Look, those semi-transparent pearls in her hair. That's really darling. And once again we have this very typical green moss khaki color used for the drapings here as well. Love this color. I also love how you see the different brush strokes in the highlights. Look at that. Look how many layers it must have taken the painter to build this up. All very thin, semi-transparent, beautiful work. And here's an overview of the whole room. I won't go into further details for the rest of the painting, but I do appreciate this period in art history very much, but I do not want to repeat myself, so I've told you what I had to say, and you can have a glimpse of what else there is. So this is a painting done by David Tenier, who is apparently one of the biggest Flemish painters and painter of the Habsburg court, and you can absolutely see why. This is a smaller size painting, and look how darling he's made the scene look like. So beautifully lit with only the Holy Family, Saint John and the baby sheep catching the light, and then everything else is more or less in shadows with just small details that catch the light, like the leaves on the tree. And we have a building, a tower, I don't know, back in the background, the setting sun, and some more trees. So beautifully balanced. Stunning work. Okay, it looks like I will be commenting on every damn painting that I'm seeing here, but look at the composition of this one. I love how circular it is, nearly. Look how this fallen tree here completes the foreground that creates like a semicircle around the Holy Family, and then we have a perfectly balanced light between the right bottom corner and the upper left, which creates nearly a diagonal in bright light. And then we also have, let me zoom in, the bark of the tree catching light, which looks a little bit like dragon scales, I believe, and those small details catching the light and looking nearly silver. Then we have also the juxtaposition between the warmer, very golden tones in the leaves and the silvery tones on the bark here. I do find this very delightful, really. And those details with the flowers here in the foreground, leading your eye into the distance with those dreamy, very magical and mystical looking trees, blues and greens, and there even is a castle snuck into the background. Look how cheeky. And the presence of the dark bird here does accentuate this spot. So even if you do not distinguish the castle right from the beginning, you do notice the bird, and then, well, there's the castle there. Look. Oh, I love this one. I really do. Beautiful. Painter is Abram Govaerts, apparently. Never heard of him before. I'm ashamed to say. I will look into it because I do love this painting and everything about it. Honestly, I do think I will do a caveat stating that if the 16th and 17th century paintings are not for you, then please skip this video because there will be a lot of this going on here. I am just in love with the style of it. I'm sorry, but the contrast in colors, the contrast in light and dark, those wonderful little details in the grasses. I cannot not film this. I love it. I was not prepared to see so many little knights here in Orléans. Look at the texture and the brushwork on those horses. I love it when you can see the different brush strokes, and the painting still looks very realistic, you know, and it's not, I mean, obviously in Van Gogh's work and all the other Impressionists, you are able to make out the different brush strokes, but I mean, I love to see it even more in paintings that from further away look completely smooth and not photorealistic, let's not push it, but traditional and realistic looking, and then you can see those fine brush strokes. Once again, just for reference, this is my hand, right? This is quite a small painting here. What I do find funny here is that the way that the leaves are painted here and the whole vibe of the scene. I feel like if you know your 19th century romantic art, you'll know instantly where the inspiration came from, right? This is another real stunner. So this initially was attributed to Brueghel the Elder until they discovered that apparently it is de Montpin. And what they explain in the text below is that probably what has happened here is that he would paint this with Brueghel the Elder, who would have put in the little people in here. And you could definitely see why they would think this is what has happened. You just have to appreciate a winter landscape by the Flemish masters, right? Let's zoom into the trees here. All very fluid brushwork, right? There is no building up of layers going on here. It's nearly semi-transparent, especially the tree in the background here in the middle. Just make me think about a painting done in ink. No? Very translucent. Beautiful though. This scene is maybe not that stunning, but what I have noticed and wanted to show you is the depiction of the river here. Do you see how you can distinguish a small waterfall, a very, very tiny waterfall, but still you can see the brushwork, you can see the brush strokes and how the water is built. Really beautiful. Love that. This, they say, is a painting done by a follower of Brueghel the Elder. I'm not sure as to what that should mean, if this would be his atelier maybe or something. It's quite apparent that it's not Brueghel himself. This is not exactly the style he's painted in, right? But so beautifully intricate. All those flowers, look how they stand out. Once again, most of them are really tiny. Look at my hand in comparison to them, right? Oh, especially those roses, look. I'll try to zoom in ever so slightly. Look. That's stunning. And we also have some, are these hamsters, are those rats nibbling away at sweet peas? Cheeky little addition to this scene. Now this actually is a painting done by Brueghel the Younger this time, and is apparently inspired by one of the painting of his father. We have an awful lot of detail here as well, with a multitude of different birds and animals, which is of course fitting because this is the embarkment scene to Noah's, oh, how do you say in English? Arch? The Arch of Noah? Well, that's not a word I use in my everyday English, so pardon my lack of linguistic knowledge here, but look how delightful this painting is. Wherever you look, there are so many details to be discovered. Even in the furthest background, look, you have some individual trees on the top of the hill, some leaves that are catching the light. You have probably the Arch of Noah in the background. This is where the animals are embarking upon, it would seem. A cat that is trying to catch the bird. I love how they are not taking themselves too serious in the 16th century, and how they smuggle in some elements of humor into the scene. And just the owl, I mean, I can't look at it and not smile. It's just humanly impossible for me. What do we have here? What type of animal is that? I feel like we are lacking light, maybe. Is it a goat? Let me know in the comments if you have any idea as to what that is supposed to be. Some swans, ducks, geese, even tortoises, and yet again, look, those hamster or rats, I don't know. Lions. This looks like a wombat, but I don't believe they have been discovered just yet. Don't know. Will this be a 3-hour video where I will film each and every painting that I come across on the third floor? Yes, it may be. It may just become that. Because look at the portrait behind me. Anyone who knows what I like will know that I will have to talk you through this portrait as well. Now, okay, is this groundbreaking for a portrait of the 17th century? Absolutely not. But do I nevertheless think that it is an exquisite realization, example of this style? Yes, absolutely I do. Because look at the color. It looks so vaporous, so transparent. You can nearly imagine yourself to feel it, to feel its texture. And also, I feel like the camera is picking up the skin tone a bit more yellowish than it is, but I will see if I can correct that in editing, but it is much more like of a pearly white. Her skin looks pearly white. It is incredible. And also, like, there is some light coming out of her skin, like she's illuminated from within. I love it. I love it. This is why we call the old masters, and not the old painters. This is a painting of the French king Henry IV, and I won't comment on the quality of this painting. This is not what I'm here for in this case. I'm just look at his facial expression here. I mean, you look at this painting and you know that the guy loved to have a good time. No? Don't you agree? This is a beautiful cabinet, but what I like even more about it is the way that the animals are represented here. So we have this very medieval inspired lion. Okay, a horse is arguably more commonplace here, but what did I see before? We had a stag, once again very medieval looking. And the boar. The boar just got me. Lovely. Another favorite of mine, the bear. And of course, the masterful woodwork has to be mentioned. How incredibly detailed this is. Stunning. Now we are firmly entering the 17th century, and you will have guessed that because I'm filming this as a overview and not a detailed sequence, I won't be commenting on an awful lot here. This is not my preference per se, but I will say that we have here a work by Georges de Latour and his atelier. So for those of you who appreciate Latour and the very Caravagesque inspiration behind it, you may note that you have one in the Museum of Fine Arts in Orléans. I mean, this for me, although I admire the quality and the work that went into it, the sheer scale, right? It's too grandiose and insincere in my opinion, or this is how I perceive those paintings. And I know that it is incredible to be able to paint it in that way, and the chiaroscuro is not lost on me, but I don't know, it does not particularly make me feel anything, you know? This is actually a very stunning portrait. I don't know the painter, it is Karel van der Pluijm, maybe. And it is absolutely masterful how he managed to give this very lifelike effect on the skin of this older woman, and how the light beautifully catches her face whilst everything else is of course in the shadow. And it's just the complexity of the colors. Look how many different undertones he used to make this face look so lively. And also the way that she looks into the distance. Is it into the window? At any rate, she's looking up from her book and she seems so completely lost in her thoughts. I think that is very beautifully done. Okay, so once again, not a painting particularly to my liking, but it is the centerpiece of what remains of the collection of Southern European art here in the Museum of Fine Arts in Orléans, because this is actually a Velazquez. And I was surprised to see that, and obviously it is a very youthful work, so you can still see how Correggio actually influenced his art in the beginning before he found his very own magnificent style. So yeah, you can note down that there is actually a Velazquez here in Orléans. Now this has been painted by one of the most known pupils of Rembrandt, and I do believe it shows. Beautiful scene, very intimate. So this is obviously Venus and Adonis. We have Cupid here on the right, and I do feel like Venus has a very Rembrandtesque quality to her, don't you think? The colors as well. Lovely rendering of the gold brocade here, in direct contrast to her very smooth skin that seems to shine from within. A lot of texture in the brush strokes here once again when painting her jewels. There's a forget-me-not in the flower crown. Really beautiful. And we have a landscape. Now that is once again half in shadow, and then the different leaves that are catching the lights are very beautiful. And before looking at this collection here, it never sprang to my eye as much that in the Renaissance leaves were painted in such a gold-looking way most of the time. It was not something that, I don't know, I have noticed before, but now I definitely do, and I do pick it up in every painting. Very funny. Lovely scene. Okay, this looks like a very beautiful arrangement of different landscapes. Let's zoom into the different works. So this one is Peter de Bloot. And then we have Guillaume Dubois. I believe that's Guillaume, or maybe the old way of writing him. Never heard of him. But wonderful little landscape with very dramatic light here. This one is Van Ruysdael. Interesting to know that there's a Ruysdael still left in this museum, because apparently there was another one or several ones before the Second World War. And Ruysdael is of course one of the bigger names of the golden age of the Flemish paintings, and you can instantly see why, right? He had such an eye for details, for nature, for the light conditions, for atmosphere. I feel like he painted the air so very beautifully. At least you can feel it in his paintings. They're not flat. You can nearly see the leaves moving. I don't know how to explain that, but you do see the atmosphere, I believe, in his paintings. Beautiful. This I'm not very keen on. I don't know, for me it lacks refinement compared to the other paintings here. This is maybe a bit arrogant to say, but I do feel like putting him with the Ruysdael is maybe not to its advantage. What do you think? Am I too severe in my judgment here? Of course, there's no real judgment, right? It's just my personal preference, but I do feel like the color is less complex and the light maybe a bit more, how should I put it, more cliché, like more of a postcard versus a masterpiece. I don't know. Fans of still life will be able to appreciate this museum as well. This is not the only example. We have another one here, and at the right of this naval battle scene. It's unfortunate how the light falls upon it, but yeah, I'm not one of those still life admirers, but if you are, you can definitely find your luck here. The other example obviously being this one, for instance. So this is Jean-Baptiste Martin, who apparently has done his apprenticeship with another painter, Adam Frans van der Meulen, who was one of the painters of Louis XIV wars. And whilst I'm not that interested in the representing the royal court aspect, I do appreciate the way that he's painted the landscape quite a lot. Let's zoom into here. I love how smooth it is, so there are no real outlines or no strong contrast in the grasses, aside from, you know, the part that is in the shadow and the part that is illuminated by the sun, right? But I mean, there is no micro contrast within the different details, so everything looks very painterly, very smooth, very dreamlike nearly, and I do like this effect a lot here. Okay, so I was very lucky to go back to all those rooms that I've just shown you to take some photographs, because I saw that apparently I have walked by a room and not seen any of the painting, and this would have meant that I have not seen the Correggio, which I'm about to show you now. And this is a beautiful example of Correggio's work as well, isn't it? I love how very soft and delicate and tender Mary looks here, and how she stands out against this very green foresty background. Lovely scene, very intimate. Now another example, which is not one of my favorites definitely, but nice to know that we do have a Veronese here in the Museum of Fine Arts in Orléans. Didn't expect that. And we are finished with the second floor, so which means that the next floor will be moving up in the chronology, so I believe that we might enter the 18th and or 19th centuries now. Now, this is the room that the reception for the new locals has been held in. whilst this is certainly not the best way to see every single painting in its detail, it certainly is incredibly impressive. And also, contrary to other French museums, like the Louvre comes to mind, there are no delimitations here on the floor. Like, you can come up quite closely to the paintings and appreciate the details. Well, this is not maybe the one that I would want to do it with, but look here. This is the one that I've shared on Instagram the day of the reception. I do quite like the detail and the texture in these jewels. And the hair. And this is where you can see how the paint has been built up to quite a considerable solid layer. You can see maybe even the texture here if I turn the camera a little bit. I do find it very impressive and a great privilege to be able to get up close that much and see how this has been done, which is great for any student, incidentally, who wants to study paintings. This is not a privilege you get in a lot of museums. I feel like, or at least I haven't seen this in a lot of other museums. You'll be, most of the time, quite shouted at if you get half this close to another painting in other museums. And this is the part that I already know and wanted to focus on, and that I'm extremely happy about, the fact that I'm nearly all by myself here in the museum and I have it to myself, and that I will be able to go through the different details, because we have 1, 2, 3 and 4 paintings that form an ensemble, because they represent the 4 elements. And I will zoom into each and every one and talk you through it, because I've already admired them at the reception. These 4 were the ones that really fascinated me, and I spent a lot of time admiring them. So all 4 were of course painted by the same person, and it is Claude Derouet, who was commissioned by Cardinal Richelieu himself to create this series to decorate, I believe, was it the bedchamber, or maybe another room belonging to the Queen. So of course all 4 paintings are a celebration of the royal family and represent them in a way, and let's find out all the different details. So first of all, we have, of course, the central chariot that represents the royal family. Then what we have are apparently the 9 muses on the left and the Olympian goddesses on the right. What they are explaining is that then we have all those people who apparently pay homage to the royal family and are representing the different regions or provinces of France, because they are carrying the different insignia, but I'm definitely not sufficiently versed in history to comment on that and to say which city would be which, or which region, would be which. I don't know. And then what they've also explained in the little text there is that in the background we also have the representation of different continents. Wait, I believe it's more on the right. Through the presence of exotic animals. So we have the elephants, for instance, here. Look at those angels who are throwing down crowns or making it rain crowns upon the royal family. It is especially this carriage of the Olympic goddesses that got me admiring the painting. I love the intricate work and the representation of details, of course, on the carriage, but it is also those beautiful colors of those very pearlescent looking goddesses and the light blue gowns that they're carrying, which create a beautiful contrast to the warm gold of their jewels. We have Diana here on the right, probably Venus sitting with Cupid. I would argue that in the middle we have Athena. We have Zeus's wife Junon, because she's holding a peacock, that's how I know. And maybe Victory. I would say yes. Beautiful looking scene, beautiful colors, beautiful contrast, beautiful texture. This is the part of the 17th century paintings that I do appreciate. It's those allegories. You are not looking for something that is realist looking or not mannered, because this is basically a more decorative looking art. And by the way, so this was Earth, right? Because we were talking about the fact that these four represent the four different elements. Just above Earth, very fittingly, we have the air. Unfortunately, it is quite high up and the lamps are hitting the painting at an angle that does not look good on camera, but basically we have a scene of a forking hunt. This also includes the representation of the royal family, but, well, in my humble and very personal opinion, this is less impressive, of course, than the Earth painting. I do like this female figure in the foreground, which looks back at the onlooker. This one is fire, of course, as you might have already guessed. And we have once again the representation of the royal family here at the balcony in the background, which is quite tiny given the scale of this painting, but I find it still incredibly impressive how many different individual figures the painter has added in, and how much time this might have cost him. I mean, look at the level of details here. The balconies are all filled with people, and this is not even the foreground, right? Very impressive. And now on top of it we have water, which is interesting because they haven't chosen a very literal representation of it, but yeah, the painter has opted for the solid water, so basically ice, an ice skating scene. Unfortunately, even I have difficulties making it out because I'm tiny, and basically if I go further away where the light's not hitting it, I can't make out the details, and if I come too close, then unfortunately there's this issue with the light. So I can't comment a lot on that, other than the fact that it is an ice skating scene and that it makes actually for another interpretation of this group of four, because it could also be taken as a set of the different seasons. So we would have winter, autumn, summer and spring, or would it be the other way around? I'm not sure. Let me know what you think. And I'm sorry, I'm getting over a cold, which I've suffered from for the last 2 weeks. So I'm starting to lose my voice a little bit. So I'll try to hurry up a little bit for this last part of the video. Here we have a room that has some of very recognizable and typical examples of the portraiture of the 18th century. We also have some enamel work here. Apparently this is a typical technique for Limoges, which is a French city that at that time was very famous for its enamels. And I have learned about the existence of a very particular technique of building figurines out of molten glass, which is known under the technical term of glass of Nevers, which is another French city. And it does make for very particular looking molten, like, I don't know, candles. Can you see that? Molten strings of glass. Once again, I'm going to give you an overview of the other rooms, but once again, it's not really my cup of tea. But you knew that. This is not what I typically focus on when I'm visiting museums, and this is of course in no way a sign of, how to put it, irrespect or something for a certain type of paintings. I do recognize the mastery in their realization. It's just, this is not why I'm here, or this is maybe not the type of art or the style that makes me feel things maybe the most. So I've seen it. I don't have to bash you over the head with this. It's actually also quite a lot bigger than I've expected this to be. Oh, the light's going on automatically. This is great. So many portraits. I mean, you can definitely see already only by the color choice, right? Which century we are on here. Oh, this is actually a funny one. Wait. So this I've known since my childhood. It is a autoportrait of the French painter Chardin. And I've also, when I was a kid, I don't know why, but I found the whole attire a bit grandma-like. So I remember it so distinctly, and I was maybe not even 10 years old. So it's funny to know that I now live in the city where this portrait is hanged. And if I say I've seen it when I was a child, like as a representation in an artist's album or something, if this was not clear from what I've said. Sorry, but as a dog lover, even though I do find the representation a bit kitschy, right? I just had to smile so hard when you see those little pinky paws of the newborn puppies. So precious. Tell me it's 18th century France without telling me it's 18th century France. Could this look any more like Fragonard than it does? And I bet it's not even him, but I mean, it's so distinctive for this period of time, right? Those pinky cherubs in the pale blue light. Who is it by? It's Boucher. Well, it had to be one or the other, right? It's either Fragonard or Boucher. Anytime any of this happens. And we actually do have a Fragonard. And it's not just a pink baby and a pink figure in the pale blue background, but it's just the plain, very pinkish looking landscape as well. I kind of find it darling, but I also know it's so kitsch. But I kind of like it. We've also a little bit of some furniture here from the same period of time, so this is a nice addition to the rest. We have some sculptures here as well. And let's see if anything will catch my eye enough for me to strain my voice further and tell you about it. Well, actually there are two, for two very different reasons. First of all, this one is an autoportrait of Marie-Victoire Lemoine, which was one of the very few female artists of this period of time. And I just wanted to say, can we please appreciate how even painters, and they would obviously also get paint all over their clothes, right? But how they in a very nonchalant way, are putting out their most beautiful white and golden gown to paint, or to be painted as being painted, right? I don't know. Very courageous, very statementy. I like this mindset. Here we have a painting by Hubert Robert, who was basically one of the painters of the Académie. So an acclaimed painter, a recognized painter, of course, and he was known for his paintings of romantic-looking ruins, and I'm definitely here for that. I believe that the lighting is too bad in this particular room for my iPhone camera to pick out enough of the detail, but maybe you can still make it out. Maybe I can salvage this in editing, I don't know. But I like this sunrise, I believe sunset. And one can argue that this is a bit kitsch, but then I would say, for one, well, that's the vibe the romantics were going for. And secondly, I do like the composition, which is not kitsch at all. It's quite inspired, I believe, and I haven't seen many paintings like that, because it's very 16 by 9, right? And everything is very vertical but still dynamic, because we obviously have the irregularities of the foliage here on the right, which are echoed by the irregularities of the ruin, right? So I like that. And then we have a very harmonious transition between the sunset and the water, and the reflection of some of its colors in the water. I believe this was a great job. Here we have another room with some big names of French painters of the Revolution, and some very well-known portraitists, but I will play the "this is not what I'm here for" card once again, all the while showing you this, because they really are very masterful portraits, right? So here you can nearly imagine maybe the reflection of the moon behind him, this being the sky. I don't know, it's unclear, but could be interpreted in that way. We are moving in the very midst of classicism and the Napoleonian era. I find this not very emotional, but I think I do like this one, which is Girodet, which is funny because when I was a student and I did my master in literature, I actually wrote about the links between Balzac and Girodet and the representation of Girodet's paintings and his aesthetic in Balzac's work. Life is funny sometimes. Once again, for those who appreciate still lifes, we do have some very beautiful examples here. And now we are firmly in the 19th century. I don't even have the necessary freshness of the eye and concentration in order to do it all justice. It is really huge for the museum of a city that is not that big. Look at that, how dramatic this light on the waterfall looks. Whose is it? It is Léon Cognier, who was one of the prize winners of historical paintings in Rome in 1817. Here we have a mixture of paintings by Remond, Jean-Charles Joseph Remond. So both of those marine scenes. And the rest is Léon Cognier once again. So this one and this here. Well, let me appreciate each and every one in detail. And this is 19th century, but I feel like this is already so very modern looking. Look how loose the brushstrokes look. Wow, that could have been an impressionist painting, no? But stunning. The light is really stunning here. Contrast between those warmer tones and the grasses, right, and the cooler tones and the shadows. It's a classic move, but look, especially how this nearly purpley looking sea is making the grasses stand out. Fantastic, fantastic work. Here I believe that we can appreciate the texture that has been created in the rock formations. Oh, and we also have a tiny figure for scale. Look at that. Wonderful. Also, this is beautiful in the way that he painted the light hitting those leaves, and I feel like you get the impression of a very distinct midday in the summer, because this is, I don't know, those colors in the shadows and those colors in the highlight. This is what you usually see when you walk through a woodland or nearby the lake in the late summer. And we have some other works from Cognier, but I do believe that these are less luminous than the previous ones. So whilst I do appreciate them, I do find them slightly less dramatic, maybe, but beautiful still, don't get me wrong. And now we're entering the realm of the very medieval-inspired 19th century art, right? This is what I've touched upon in the beginning of the video. This is not my cup of tea, but you know, it's here, it's what it is. This is really the motto of this whole room. Oh, a dryad. Oh, I don't believe I have already seen a painting of a dryad. I don't know whether I would have pictured her that way, coming out of the trunk of the tree, but I do like the vibe. Beautiful. And also, is this a night scene, maybe? I feel like the tones are too warm for it to be night, but at the same time the way that the sky is illuminated is looking like a full moon to me, but we'll never know. Please appreciate the framework here. I have never seen anything like this. The level of detail really had me questioning whether it was real branches in wood they have maybe painted and put there, but I would argue that this is metal, but I don't know. I'm very much intrigued, but to my biggest frustration, there is nothing in the text that gives any kind of information about it. But isn't this absolutely stunning? I'm actually blown away by the size of this museum. I was not at all expecting that. I'm running low on battery and I don't know whether I'm half through actually. Look at that. We are yet again in another huge room filled with grandiose paintings. I really hope that my video might put the Museum of Fine Arts of Orléans on the map, because I feel like it is really worth it. I'm shocked. I'm really shocked at how good it is, actually. This one I've already read about. This is actually one of the very many paintings of Joan of Arc that are exhibited here, but this is actually one of those I really prefer because it's more eloquent and less, how should I put it, not kitsch, but we are not seeing her in a lot of armor, but this is like the moment of the revelation. This is where and when she had her visions. This is a nighttime scene. I do feel that this is quite a different type of representation of Joan of Arc, and I do enjoy it very much, or quite a bit more than the one we see here or the one that we would see here, because most of the time it's a 19th century representation of Joan of Arc, which is either very historic painting, romanticized, or those where you see her in full armor, kind of very full of pathos style of painting, which I'm not a huge fan of. I'm terribly sorry for this very abrupt ending, but my battery died on me, as did my voice apparently. So this is maybe not the worst thing that could happen. I was a little gutted because there were 2 or 3 other pieces by Corneille as well, in a very different style that I absolutely wanted to show you. These were not landscape paintings, but some more maybe symbolist paintings, which I found surprising. So this is a bit unfortunate, but nevertheless, I do feel like I've shown you the most interesting and the best bits, at least in my opinion. So this is by no means a objective documentary or something, but this is after all my channel and this is my point of view that you're here for, so I hope that you found this enjoyable and interesting, and that it might have awakened your interest in visiting Orléans. On the whole, I really am extremely surprised of how big the collection is, because Orléans is maybe the 15th biggest city of France, so it's, especially given the fact that there is such a huge gap between the size and number of inhabitants of Paris and then all the other cities, doesn't say a lot about the size of Orléans, of course, so I wouldn't say it is a big city by any means. So finding something of a bigger collection here was very surprising for me, a very positive surprise, I might add, because having this practically on your doorstep is great. I can see me go back there for some sketching and yes, revisiting maybe some of the paintings that I really enjoyed and I have shown you. I also liked the way that it was all set up, so that everything is done in a chronological order, that you have more or less one sentry per floor is also very clear for the visitor, I believe, so you don't have to meander through the different rooms and don't know what type of painting will be waiting for you. So this is very clear walkthrough, I believe. I like that a lot. Quite a few hidden gems here, so I cannot recommend you enough coming over here and seeing for yourself. I will now enjoy my cup of coffee, recover my voice, hopefully at some point. And yes, thank you so much for coming with me to the discovery of this museum and joining me for this little video. As always, I hope to see you very soon in my next video. And until then, I wish you all a very delightful morning, afternoon or evening, wherever you are. Cheers guys, have a good one.